Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection out in Wisconsin with Dr. Lona Cook. Lona, can you get us started by just introducing yourself and also reflecting on that moment when you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor? What was going on in your life and what attracted you to this path?
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm in Wisconsin, in the western part of the state. I have a few practices out here, and I've been in practice for 13 years. And probably, I guess, I remember sitting in my first day of chiropractic school. And I think this was a kind of pivotal moment for me where I remember listening to whoever was on stage, and they said, "This is a tough profession because you're always having to tell people why they need to come back." And I remember thinking, did he misspeak? Because I grew up going to the chiropractor periodically, and there was never a point where I thought, why wouldn't someone come back? It just seemed very just like the dentist, it's good for you. You should be going. And if you didn't go, you wouldn't tell someone that you weren't going. And I thought that most people had a similar upbringing. So I think chiropractic wasn't even something I thought that deeply about. I just knew it was good for you. And I liked my chiropractor growing up. And so it very, very much seemed like a natural choice to me to continue with the process. And it was that first day in school that I thought, wait a second, am I different? I don't know. Mm-hmm.
But so you were growing up, going to the chiropractor regularly. At what point in life were you clear that you wanted to become a chiropractor? And then how did that shift the trajectory of maybe the major you chose to major in college? Or what was your path like having that clarity, and how early on did you have that clarity?
Yep. I think it was 11th grade that I really decided that that's what I thought I wanted to do. My parents were both teachers. And so as a young kid, I thought, oh, I'll probably be a teacher. And then I think it was just by witnessing our chiropractor, MJ Godinstead. She was in Eau Claire, which is nearby where I practice right now. And I thought she just was so neat how she used her hands to help people. And I knew everyone in my family benefited at one point or another from seeing her. And so I think it was 11th grade. I had to do a paper or something like that, where it just kind of solidified, no, I think this is what I want to do. And then I went to Madison, actually. So I was a Badger, and I actually chose creative writing as my degree, and then just took all the science classes alongside that. And I'm sure it was MJ that probably told me it doesn't matter so much what you major in as long as you can get into chiropractic school. And so I just thought in my head, I like English better than science. And so that's what I chose. Little did I know that eventually I'd write some books within the profession. And so maybe it would benefit me to have the English background. I don't know. But I just kind of listened to what felt right for myself and just kept going.
And just while we're on topic, can you acknowledge the different works that you've been able to publish, and
Sure.
what the inspiration behind them were while we're on topic?
Yeah. So I wrote one book particularly for chiropractic students. That was my first book. It's called Just Tell Me Where to Start. And it's all about the first 2 years getting into practice. And it's just me telling my story of building a practice from the ground up and paying off student loans. What steps was I taking along that trajectory? And really what I did is I just looked at my calendar and went backwards and said, okay, 6 months out, this is what I was doing. 5 months out, this is what I was doing. And so the reason I wrote it was because I felt kind of, as I was getting to that point where I was about to pay off my student loans, I remember thinking, I wish someone would have told me their story of you can open from scratch, you can pay off those loans, it can be done. And I think you just don't hear that as much as you maybe need to. And so I just put it together because I felt led to do that. And then self-published it. And then I've actually come out with the second edition now because I've opened a few practices since then. So I just put in some more of the insight I've gained. And then I also wrote a book called DC or CADC Synergy. So it's on communicating with your staff. That's another learning curve we all get to do usually as we are into practice. We maybe don't think of ourselves as an employer, but eventually you will have other people that work with you. And so learning to navigate that and communicating effectively is a huge part of success. And then more recently, I wrote a book called Reclamation, the Evolution of a Hot Mess. And it was like my first time kind of going outside the chiropractic profession to share some of my own story of how did I start to wake up to looking at my life like it's happening through me and not to me. And really that concept we know in chiropractic, above, down, inside out, life is happening. But can you apply it to like every aspect of your life, really? Whether we're talking about the person laying on the table and trusting that the body's going to heal and that they're going to do their own healing, or looking at what's unfolding in our practice and realizing it's all part of you, So it's a lot of responsibility to start to look at your life that way. But I think when you can make that choice and start to see it, that's where you can like really create some magical energy to create what you're probably here to do. So
And just to stay in the present with what you're bringing up here, can you kind of just elaborate on what your goal or intention for people that read these books is? Just go one book at a time and maybe just speak to like the impact that you're attempting to make, or just share with others.
yeah, sure, I'd love to. Thank you. Just tell me where to start. My goal with that book is to help people see it's possible. Like it's possible to open from scratch. It's possible to do it successfully. People, I think sometimes think you need so much money to get into practice, and you're already in debt generally coming out of school. And so it can just feel insurmountable. So my purpose for it was to use it as a tool to propel you into like, betting on yourself, essentially. Like, can I do this? Yes, I can. I've had a lot of students over the year reach out and say like, thank you. It was such an easy read. And it gave me like, it empowered me to make the choice that I felt on my heart, which was to like invest in my own practice. So that's why I wrote it, to share it. And so I want to keep I would love to send it out to more students because I'm sure it's still relevant. And then the synergy book, it continues to be a near and dear conversation, is like, as your teams expand and every year now with all the technology that's out, you're constant re-looking at your procedures, your team, it just becomes relevant that you keep getting better at communicating with each other, especially if you're going to keep staying as relevant to like all the different ways that you can practice now with technology too. So I think that book just acts as like hopefully a tool again for especially new practitioners to learn how to communicate their vision and attract staff that can support the vision and do it with them, because we're not going to do it alone generally. And then the last one was I mean, the thing that has transformed me in chiropractic was especially learning the philosophy of chiropractic. So getting to share that outside of the chiropractic sphere with my writing too, that's my hopes for it, is that the people who read it can see, like, sometimes you see the chiropractor and maybe they're like, you think, oh, their lifestyle works for them, but I couldn't live that way. Or, oh, that woman can birth naturally and do it at home, but I would never do that, and you don't realize that you're more similar than you are different, or yes, more similar than you are different. And so hearing someone's story of how they kind of went deeper and deeper into some of these choices and why, I think helps you relate, which I think we are all far more similar than we are different. So, yeah.
For sure. And can you maybe now just start from the beginning of your journey to becoming a chiropractor? You get to school, what are some maybe challenges you had to overcome, or surprises you encountered, or what were like the key habits and lifestyle strategies that you built into your experience? Or maybe just talk about the highlights of your experience in chiropractic school, because it was a while ago.
Yeah. Okay. So I graduated now 13 years ago. I would say a good piece of advice I got from a student who was ahead of me in school was to just keep my mind open, because you come in thinking you're going to possibly do chiropractic a certain way, maybe from your experience growing up or what have you. And, if you can, like, if you just keep experiencing new things, it's a great opportunity to just like really put your feelers out, because it's never going to be cheaper than when you're in school to like test different seminars and try on different ideas, or to call up clinics and go shadow and see like, oh, I really like the vibe here, but not so much over here. That is a golden opportunity if you're willing to take it. I think a lot of people stay too head down in school and forget that the big picture is that you're going to end up in practice, not in school. And so that doesn't mean like forgo your studies or your boards. It just means keep perspective. And so if I would know more like I do now, that had I known that then, I would have shadowed even more, and tried to have more opportunity to go to seminars. Luckily, I went to some, and I think some of the things that I did right in school was towards the end of school, I started several clubs, one of them being a technique club on campus. And that was just good for me to practice even just leadership of trying to set something up and create communication around it. So look at those opportunities to lead within the school as opportunities to just practice public speaking and leading people, because we're all going to be leaders within our community and our offices. And so these are golden opportunities.
Yeah, just to keep building context for you, the fourth stage of pre-chiropractic studies is to start your own chiropractic club, pre-chiropractic club on your college campus. I'm just wondering if, knowing what you know now and also reflecting on the experiences and like where you were at mindset wise and just confidence wise, as opposed to now, it might have been a lot different. It might have been very similar, but can you maybe just give some recommendations to any students that are starting a pre-chiro club on their college or high school campus, how they can go about the creative process of thinking through how they want to start it and how they want to grow it and who they want to reach out to invite to join them?
Yeah. Yeah. I think connect with local offices first. We had a really solid pre-chiro club here, at University of Eau Claire here in Wisconsin until COVID, and now I don't know what's happening with the club, but they did a great job of reaching out to local offices and coming in maybe once a month to a different office just to hear someone speak. And again, some people are going to vibe with a certain doc, someone's somewhere else. But I think that kind of goes back to that idea of just keeping an open mind. Another idea for a pre-chiro club was to like vet out the different schools and see if they would, if you have enough of a following, different schools will bring a recruiter and probably take you out to dinner and different things like that too. I think, again, even since 13 years now, like the communication style has probably totally changed. So if a lot of things were done by during email at that time, you guys might have different ways that you're getting the message out right now, whether, I don't even know, TikTok or whoever knows. But I think the key thing is just like figuring out what that's going to be and then sticking with it. So you're following through. It's true for anything, if you want something to grow, there has to be like diligence there and a repeatable nature about it. So if two people show up to the first meeting, that's only the first meeting. If two people show up to the next meeting, well, at least they came back, right? And just stay the course. So that's a big part of building a practice or anything, is staying the course and keep, learning from what happened the last week. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you maybe just reflect on, so just to also go back to stage 2, breaking up inner state, or your innate into your inner state, your inner scientist, thinker, artist, teacher, entrepreneur. So I appreciate you sharing that you've written books, which really was you building off of the skills and the artistry of being a creative writer and just thinking about ways that you want to express yourself. Can you maybe also just reflect on how being a chiropractor this last decade plus, the types of skill sets that you've been able to express, the artistry or the scientist aspects, or how you think differently, or how you have to think, and then the entrepreneurial side and the teacher side, because those are the 5 things that I'm kind of trying to create a framework so that students can see the science, philosophy, art, business, communication is all relevant. I don't want to say equally relevant. Maybe we can make the case that the philosophy is the most powerful thing that you could get really clear on. But if you can maybe just unpack a life as a chiropractor and the different skills that you really have had to develop really well to be successful.
Well, I think for me, one of the things that I don't know if it didn't sink in at the beginning. And when I began practice, I would say that I had a philosophical element in the sense that I knew like we're adjusting the spine to impact the nervous system. And, I also like had an understanding because of receiving chiropractic my whole life. But what I didn't realize is that the depth of the philosophy and also the science that backs up the philosophy And then the application, which is like the art form of the, applying what we know. And so in my mind, I kept this application of I'm adjusting the spine and the body self-healing, self-regulating, and it flows above, down, inside out to what was happening on my chiropractic table. Like, okay, this person's laying down, I'm analyzing their spine, I'm doing the adjustment, now their body can heal better, off they go, right? And as I went deeper just in my own understanding of life, healing, it led me into more metaphysical constructs or learning more about like the energy that connects all things, and eventually into like universal law, and one of those laws being like law of attraction. And I again kind of kept them separate. So I was like, chiropractic's over here. Law of attraction is like, I want to build a successful business. So I would practice like, what's my vision and what do I want to have happen and what do I want my team to look like? And I'd write that down. And I still didn't really get it because I still kept these things separate in my mind. And what I realized as I kept learning more and unlearning at the same time, was that because we live in a body and we have life force coursing through us or energy going through us, like we are walking, talking law of attraction because we are vibration and frequency. And so the elements of vibration and frequency or tone apply to every aspect, whether it's leadership, money, business, team dynamics, or whether or not somebody's healing, right? And so that's the cool part, is when you really like start to get this, like what Dee Dee was talking about, because I think he was so deep that we're just barely getting there some of the time. It's like it can be applied to all things because it is all about the pattern that is unfolding. And if you don't like what's showing up, whether that's something in your body or what's happening around you, like it's all connected because of the fact that life is happening through you and it is a vibrational match. So for some people, you totally follow what I just said there. For other people, you may not. But I think that's the really beautiful part about this profession, is like it just keeps getting deeper. Like the deeper and more simplistic you go with it, the more you're like, wow, it is like transformative to learn this, not only for the application to your own life, but then the good you can do in the world, being able to adjust other people's nervous systems and help their system recalibrate. What does that do for our four walls, our community, our world at large? Like it's just a powerful thing to just be even interested to start to learn more.
Sorry, hit the mic. So for the third stage, the apprentice stage, we're inviting students to go into multiple offices and have different types of experiences. Can you bring us into your practice and share in as much detail as you can, like what people experience when they come into your office, how you design the experience to be had, and then also maybe how your different clinics vary in who they serve or where they serve and how they serve?
Yeah. Okay, so a concept that I used right from the beginning, and I would still use it now, and I think it's a good question for all of us to ask ourselves, is what would you want if you were the practice member coming into an office? Like what would you want that experience to be like? And so, as you learn more, you learn like I can probably craft the system around this better. But I think that's a good question to start with, because if we're not authentic in what we're delivering and that we would want it ourselves, then it's probably not meant for us. And so, we want, and I would take you out there right now, but I can't right now because of my computer situation. But we want it to feel like life when they walk in here. So there's like plants everywhere. Excuse me, I'm throwing my pen at you. There's plants everywhere. We've got some like interesting geodes and a lot of color. It's definitely not lacking for things to look at, but it's just kind of a like fun experience. It's maybe a little loud, some would say, but I also think like it's our vibe. And so all things that we do, whether it's the social media or if we're going to go talk somewhere in the community, I want it to feel like it's a congruent expression of what they would get if they walked in here as well. Yes, we can turn up the volume or not if we want to, but it's just a way that I think about marketing is it all should be, coherent anyways, whenever possible. And so that first experience for someone, we talk a lot about whether we're training staff or how, if we're just going through role playing together, because we do that weekly, is like, they may have a lot of preconceived notions. They might be scared. Like that is a very emotional experience for someone. And so our goal is to put them at ease, make them feel welcome. And hopefully by the end of that first visit, have them feel like I chose the right place. And I'm so glad, like so happy I found this place. Right. Now, with that said, you might have someone that hopefully, if they saw our website and they saw what it says, they also know that they're not walking into like a white medical experience here, because they'll be sadly disappointed by that if that's what they wanted. A lot of it also is like realizing that people are going to come in and some people are having a great day. Like they maybe just got accepted to college or something like that. And other people are coming in and they just lost their mom, or, it's the worst day of their life. And so in a true family practice, I believe like, it's like the culture almost has to be that like you can come no matter what is happening, because it's a safe space for people where they can just be who they are in this moment. And so we want it to feel like that. So it's just like their nervous systems can be wherever they're at, instead of having to feel like they need to be protected because they don't know if it's safe here, or like somebody's going to whammy them with like it has to be the best day of their life and it's not, that's not real either. So then on day 2 of their like first experience, that's more where there's a little more education involved, a little more understanding of like, what's this process of chiropractic going to look like here? Hopefully, again, because their first experience was good, they're looking forward to this visit, and we're starting to show them how they're actually going to engage in chiropractic with us. And they'll get adjusted and on, right? And so we just want to hold their hand through that process. And I think no matter how procedures, quote unquote, look in your practice, a lot of it is about just telling people what to expect so that their nervous systems can like adapt to the process without being so scared of like, what's happening next? I don't even know if I like this, So for us, that's a big part of that first portion. Another part that's maybe a little different here is, though I think people can benefit from chiropractic at all ages and like hopefully would choose to continue to get adjusted, I also don't believe that I always know best what's for them. And so if somebody doesn't choose to engage in care right now, that doesn't mean that they're not welcome back, whether that's 2 weeks later or 2 months later or 22 years later. Like, again, I just feel like I'm not God. I'm not trying to play God in this ebb and flow of what needs to happen. So our job is to do our best job communicating the benefits of chiropractic and what, choices that person has. And then they can choose to engage to the degree that they want to.
Yeah, and I'm actually curious if you could walk with me down this path of like holding somebody's hand throughout months and years of their life and how their life evolves and changes over time, and what the role of being a chiropractor means to somebody that maybe you meet when they're 6 years old and you're still taking care of them at 66 years old, or you're still seeing them at different times throughout their life, and just like what that experience like and the value in that.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a true family practice. I was interviewing someone that is a practice member actually right before this. So she may be our next team member. I'm not sure, but, I've seen her for a long time. And so I've gotten to see her kind of evolution. And I was telling her, one of the things that I do think is the beautiful part of chiropractic and also challenging for whether that's CAs or DCs is learning how to regulate your own system when you're going table to table or person to person, and somebody is in that really traumatic place versus someone who's like really elated, and all the in-betweens in a relatively short time frame. So that's part of it is learning how to do that dance truly. And then also realizing that your people, especially if they're going to stay in the practice for lengths of time, is like you're going to see them through both of those waveforms, the highs and the lows, and they're going to see you through that times too. And that is also inner work that needs to be done because you care about each other. So there is sometimes, I think, this element where we're taught that like you can't be human because you're the caretaker or you're the like practitioner. And it's like, yes, the person coming in is there for them, but also you still matter in the equation. And I think that's something probably across the board in healthcare that we haven't done a real good job of, is like we take care of other people, but are we even learning how to take care of ourselves in that equation? And so, I think of a family when you ask me that question, what's it like to see people through like different life experiences? And there's a family right now that is going through a really challenging situation amongst a mother and a son. And, it's sort of heartbreaking for me because I've known them before he had left the home, and now he has his own kids, and like, and now they're really at odds with each other. And I feel for his mother because I can see the pain on her face when she talks about him. And yet I trust that somehow this like angst between them is part of the healing that's probably there for both of them. But they're in a hard spot, and that's not my job to take that away from them. So that's the other part I think you have to realize is my job as a chiropractor is to teach them about how important their nervous system is to adapting to their life. And as they come up to different stressors, it's their job to recognize, I got to get on the table as a routine. And also the other steps they need to take that maybe sometimes you're guiding them towards to help them, hit their goals, whatever they may be. And they also may fall at times. And that's kind of part of being human. So I think it's just honoring you're going to be human in this process, and you're going to hold space for a lot of humanness.
Yeah, and I'm curious, just as we segue to the end of this conversation. So, stage 5 is the independent study capstone project, and it's really just inviting students into this creative process of designing their own project. If we were to give that to you at, say, with the skills you have now, and you've got 3 to 6 months before you go to chiropractic school to do anything you want to do you have any creative projects that come to mind that you think might be really relevant to the experience you're about to have in chiropractic school and the experience that you'll eventually have of practicing chiropractic? I'm just curious off the top of your head if there's anything that comes to mind of some prompts that we could give, or one really detailed prompt for students.
I think anything that forces you to communicate in a way that gets you out of your comfort zone is a good creative project. So public speaking, because whether it's one-on-one with other people or in a group setting, like the more comfortable you can get with articulating yourself, especially in simple ways, I think that will serve you in so many ways. So thinking on your feet, communicating quickly, honestly, even being, this is not a creative project, but sometimes just things like being in service industries where you have to continually do different things, meanwhile communicating with a lot of people at once, is probably a skill set that will serve you in practice.
Absolutely. And if we can just expand our context for a brief moment here, the pre-chiropractic project is really about establishing a pre-chiropractic studies field of study, shall we call it, that has never really been focused on and developed in a way where we're caring enough about that pre-chiropractic student to say, hey, there's actually a lot you can practice right now to prepare yourself for the real world after school, but also while you're in school to have the most rich experience as possible. What do you think that would do for incoming students in the future? What do you think that would do for our profession? Because the metaphor I like to use is that we often talk about the first subluxation happening at birth, and that's kind of like what pre-chiropractic is like preconception. Conception is like pre-chiropractic students going and becoming chiropractic students, and that whole process and experience. What's your thoughts really briefly on pre-chiropractic and how that could shift the trajectory of our profession in the next 20 years?
I love what you're doing. This is awesome. I think it makes a huge difference. I can't tell you how many people were in school with me that had never been adjusted until they came to school. So I should have said that when you asked, what should somebody be doing? Like, it's hard to explain chiropractic to someone until you've gotten it. Like, you are different because you've been adjusted. Um, that is, to me, a no-brainer that you would get yourself under care and understand what it feels like to be adjusted in a environment where you feel like this environment cares about me. They want to see my success in whatever my endeavor is, and that part of that is like through the health and well-being of my spine and nervous system. So I think that alone, to have everyone that's entering chiropractic school really understand what chiropractic is, would be transformative for our profession. Because it would also take people that maybe aren't doing it for the right reasons, or not, maybe they're just choosing it because they didn't get into med school or something else. That would be big.
Thank you so much for taking some time to connect with us, and the students that are able to watch this in the future will be thankful for you as well. And yeah, just have a beautiful day. Thank you for shining a light. I like the vibrant background behind you. And can you really quickly just say where people can connect with you, and where your work is basically positioned online?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is just drlonacook.com. And the books are on Amazon. I will also tell you another thing that I didn't even mention, which is we are doing chiropractic in one of my practices. The practice is solely operating in the public school system. And so to me, that is a transformative project within our profession as well, because if more children are adjusted because it is available to them, for instance, at school, just like PT and OT is available for many students at school, it changes also the culture, like who knows about chiropractic, who understands it, as well as if you could go to chiropractic school and come out and work within a school district, there's a lot of people that would like that. So that's something else that if you're interested in that, you can follow that on our websites, and what we're doing with that work.
Can you, in 30 seconds, just talk about what the name of that project is, what the experience is like, and what the intention is behind that?
Yep. Okay. So it was birthed out of really a seminar I went to where the chiropractor on stage was talking about how, like, as a profession, we have to learn how to think bigger, and realize that sometimes we're so head down in our practice that we forget that there's many other corporations and entities that think for our children and make decisions that maybe don't always have their best integrity in mind. And so why do we as a profession fail to do that, right? It's because a lot of times we're in our ma and pa shops and we're doing our thing. And so that stuck with me when he said, like, the pharmaceutical industry does not have trouble thinking this large for our children, that they're, enmeshed into our school system. So why not chiropractic? And so I went back to the practice, a year or so went by, and opportunity came to talk to the superintendent. It led to bringing chiropractic in for the staff in our local district. That, after a year or so, we were invited to work with the kids, and that grew from there. So now I have a full-time doc. That's my partner in that venture. She has a brick and mortar practice built into the HR department, as well as goes into each of the schools that are in our district, and is serving a lot of people chiropractic adjustments each week, but it's happening into the four walls of the public school system. And Heidi Havoc, who is one of the top researchers in chiropractic, she is helping us to put together the case series for that. So our vision is that we will help other school districts and other chiropractic entities to duplicate a very similar system and bring it into other regions too.